Good evening and welcome to Spotlight. My name is Noam Falong. You're watching MX24 television. And this evening we're speaking with a man we do not need to introduce, but we will introduce him anyway. He used to be Minister for Finance and Economic Planning between 2013 and 2017. Clearly, the John Mahama administration, partly. He's here with us this evening and we're going to be running a few pertinent questions by him. And we're here with Mr. Seth Terkper. Good evening, sir. And thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. And apologies, it's been a long time.
Yes, we've been trying to catch you since last year. It takes quite a lot to catch you.
Well, it's not that difficult, but it's just that the timing.
Okay,
in your case,
timing.
Yes.
Okay, thankfully today our timing has aligned and you're here. You're no longer the Minister for Finance.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
I do some research.
Okay.
You can see from what's behind me that there's something called PFM tax.
Okay.
Africa. And I spent a lot of my working life, almost all my working life, in public financial management and tax. Tax is, what
You're a tax man.
Yes, I am a tax man. That I must admit, because that launched my career.
Okay.
So to the extent that after I qualified, I decided to remain in public sector taxation, not the private sector, which like the Ernst & Young, type. They are doing some public sector now. And then I branched into public financial management thanks to my accounting background. So researching the fiscal, public financial management, public sector accounting is what I do mostly now, including taxation.
So if I need
that's
someone
the basis for our research.
to break down the taxes for me, I can come knocking on your door.
Yeah, maybe. For a little fee, if you want.
For a fee.
No, that's just a joke.
Right. And the teaching?
Yeah, I do some teaching.
Okay.
I've always taught, actually.
Where do you teach?
Currently, I teach at the University of Ghana Business School.
Okay.
As part-time lecturer. I teach postgraduate and level 4, sometimes 3. And so officially I'm a part-time lecturer, but I do more like adjunct.
Were you teaching while you were in office?
Whilst in office, apart from some workshops and seminars to which I'm invited, no, I wasn't teaching. But prior to that, yes, for example, before I came to Ghana to be deputy minister, 2009. Okay, before 2013.
Yeah.
I was with the IMF, and I was teaching at the IMF Institute and a few, doing adjunct in some universities like, Harvard, Duke, and other places. So I've always taught. And before that, I was teaching.
Right. I wanted to mention this much later in the interview, but since you have established yourself as a tax man, what do you think about the e-levy?
I'm opposed to it.
Why?
And I've gone public about that.
Yes. Are you opposed to it because it's from the opposition, or you have certain principles upon which you're opposed to it?
It's principle.
Okay.
It's purely principle.
Which is?
First, we are taxing savings.
Okay.
And even a developing country should not tax savings. And as I keep saying, what's the difference in me keeping my money in the wallet, leather wallet, and I go and buy a shirt? All I pay is the VAT on the shirt, which is consumption because I'm consuming. If it's imported, I pay excise, which the importer is passing on. I pay tariffs, but that's consumption. Or if I take the money and I give it to, put it in the family business, I earn income, you can tax it. So basically you tax income or you tax taxation. The mere fact that I've taken the money from my wallet does not give you, it does not make it efficient and prudent to tax. You are just living out of the norm. Right. Now the difference is, with e-levy is, currently if I take from my leather wallet, nobody taxes it. What's the difference between a leather wallet and an electronic wallet? What's the difference? It's not equitable. So between me and you, or let me say, compare myself, with some of the young people you have here.
Okay.
Yeah, they live in an era where everything is on the phone.
Okay.
Right? So by merely taking that money to buy, a shirt, t-shirt, or whatever, they are paying the VAT, they are paying the import duty, they are paying, and in addition, you are putting a tax just because they are using electronic means of payment.
Right, but...
and the reason is savings is I have earned my income as an employee.
Okay.
It's been taxed. PAYE, you've paid the income on it already.
Yeah.
So what I have under my pillow, in my wallet, it shouldn't make a difference.
But the same funds you use to purchase goods and services are taxed.
Yes, because it's consumption. So that's why I was careful and said that if you use the money to buy a shirt from your phone, or I use the money and I take it and I go to the shop, yes, it doesn't matter, because that is VAT, everybody should pay. That's import duty, everybody should pay. So the means doesn't matter, whether I'm writing a check or whatever, right? What you pay on which what you pay on which a tax can be placed is the fact that you choose to use the services of MTN on your phone. That is a consumption of a service. Okay. So you can put a tax on it. You can put the conventional taxes
on that specific service. But
similarly, if I buy something online, provided we develop the means, we should tax that. They should pay the same, like me walking to, the roadside and buying a shoe, buying a t-shirt, or walking into a mall. If the mall is electronic, it shouldn't make a difference. Okay. The tax that I pay, so that's fairness in taxation.
Honorable, this government has been struggling with revenue generation for a while, and this is a whole industry where a lot of people are caught within. And in trying to expand the tax net, don't you think this is an advantageous place where government can make some revenue? Because a lot of people who are not even in the banking sector have mobile money wallets. And if we're trying to expand the tax net and catch more people within it and generate more revenue, isn't it the best place to go?
You do that, but you don't discriminate among your citizens.
Right. How is it discriminatory?
I just explained. I mean, what's the difference between the money which has been taxed? Government has taxed it already, right? Which the government has taxed already. What's the difference between the two of us? Let's take it out. All of you here, work with, MX, 24 TV? Yeah. You are paid by the same accountant, right? Right. Your PAYE, that is pay as you earn, on your salary has been deducted. What does it matter then that I am old school and I keep my money in my wallet? Right? And I don't do Momo. And you maybe Generation X or whatever it is now, use the same income. If we were the same level of income, I'm being taxed simply because I'm using my phone. Right. So yes, I have argued that actually when we talk about expanding the tax base, it's not just going to the roadside and looking for people who are in kiosks and things that are not paying tax. It's also about the new economy, right? So if the new economy is electronic, the VAT law gives you the powers to use VAT to tax the person who is selling through electronic means, right? It gives you the powers. If you authorize your employer to transfer money to your phone, your salary to the phone, and not to the bank, it doesn't excuse you from not paying PAYE. So it means that GRA should make it easier for the young people who would want their salary to be transferred through electronic means, right, to pay their taxes, the conventional taxes. But the mere fact that I am taking money, savings, from under the pillow. Wallet, So for equity, then find a means of paying people who are taking money, under their pillow. Find a means of, taxing people who are, in fact, writing a check. It's the earlier form of electronic transfer before, when the banks were doing themselves instead of using the MTNs and the rest, using their platforms and the rest to do it. So that's a matter of principle. I mean, secondly, it is less efficient. If you look at it, we've spoken about fairness. The other principle is efficiency. It's less efficient because we used to have a plethora of service taxes, and the VAT came to replace all this. It consolidated all of them. You can go to PNDC, no, it is actually Act 500 and 501, and you see them listed, all that we are talking about. They were listed and taxed separately, different rates and the rest. But they are all consumption taxes which were put together and distinguished from the punitive taxes, excise. Right? So what is e-levy? Is it the fact that I'm consuming electronic, or you are punishing me because, like tobacco and alcohol, I must pay a levy, an excise? Right? Well, so I'm not opposed to extending the tax base to income and transfer through electronic means, or spending that money through electronic means. It shouldn't make any difference.
What would be the options to raising revenue in a tight situation as government finds itself presently? Revenue is much lower than they expected. It's a difficult situation, and they need an emergency way of raising revenue.
But what we are talking about is already in the budget. Are you aware? It's not a new form of revenue. It's in the 100 billion that's to be collected. The 6 point something, which is let's approximate to 7, is in the budget. And we still have the budget to be tight. So this impression that somehow it is new and it is going to, help the government get out of the red and whatever, is there already. We're already in the red. And it's been projected to 2025 to increase from 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 10. So it's already the medium-term forecast and everything. So we need more efficient way of generating. As I said, we've streamlined. This is the irony. We said, and when I say we, I mean the Mama administration, Mayor's Mama administration,
right,
said, let us extend the tax to electronic services, right? Let us extend the VAT to electronic means of consumption and any income. That's a new economy. The new economy is financial services, you know that, MTN and all those. It's services.
Vodafone, right? All of them.
Yes. So it's services, and you are paying a fee. That fee should attract VAT.
Okay.
Right? We are not talking about interest. If we put the VAT on interest, and it's income, but it's not consumption. That's why we talk about non-core financial services. That is services. So any service, whether you want a loan, any service on which the bank decides to charge you, any service, Momo, on which the guy, doing the transfer decides to charge you as a fee. Yeah, we put the VAT on it. This was removed with fanfare in 2017. So the one which is even consumption was removed with fanfare. They took big credit for it.
Right.
Right? Why go through the back door?
Do you think they should have maintained that?
Well, that's the only way. That's one way of expanding the tax base, because otherwise your tax remains on old economy. It remains on agri and the rest. But services have become the new sector of the economy, right? And so, in relation to that, you must bring the new sector of the economy, because services has exceeded agri as the largest sector of the economy. And the tax base must expand. Otherwise, again, you are not being equitable to those who are in the old economy and are bearing, the brunt of the taxation, and you are living out the new, which is electronic, is petroleum. So petroleum services. If you are a business and you pay the VAT, you get a credit, you get a refund. That was blocked. Get Fund, NHIL, used to be classified as VAT for businesses because they are not consumers. That was also removed with fanfare. So if you create tightness in the tax regime on taxes which is generally accepted in principle should be taxed, then you don't go around because you don't want to admit and restore, those taxes, and you bring taxes which levy savings. No.
This
so it's in principle, no.
This specific electronic service tax during the Mahama administration, even that was opposed by Ghanaians.
As was the VAT.
Yeah. Right, yes.
Yeah, but from misconception, from giving the yes. So that's the point. And so I'm not talking politics. Komi Prekon was, somehow whatever. And if you want to look at the opposition to tax, it happens in every economy because taxation is, but tax practitioners and in political economy must be principled. Otherwise, you are distorting the tax regime.
What is the excuse?
So if you remove one efficient tax and replace it with one that is distortionary, the other reason is, as I was saying, at the moment the e-levy compared to the VAT. As I said, if you are a registered VAT business, you're right, and you pay any VAT on your inputs, you are not the final consumer. You are giving a credit, you are giving a refund. Part of that was blocked as straight levy. We are in a season of levies. Straight levy, environmental levy, and whatever. That's another reason. What has all those levies done for us? Why haven't they increased the tax base? Why would ESLA, which we introduced, is a levy, it was to go away 3 to 5 years. So we're in a season of levies. There are about 10 or so levies which have been introduced. You can.
Honorable, this is the excuse of the NPP also. Tax is always opposed by people. It's the same with the e-levy. It's the same you're saying.
That was the principle.
Right, so you're saying the e-levy
My point is on principle.
Right,
yes, and I'm saying that
it's not efficient.
Yes, principle and inefficient. Ultimately, you take your time to explain. It must be principled, and the principles of taxation are fairness, efficiency, and ease of collection. And this is not because the VAT, you get refunds and credit. All these levies which we used to have, as I was saying, right, you don't get any credit. So if you don't get if the businessman pays the tax, on the credit, on the input, and he's not giving a refund or credit, they are not philanthropy. They will pass it. They will pass it on as cost, and it will increase domestic prices. That's what you call, cascading. So that's another reason for being against the e-levy.
Honorable, some people think if we hadn't gone this way, then the economy would have had to resort to the IMF for a bailout.
We wait to see. We wait to see.
Is the IMF a good decision, though?
The e-levy is not enough to prevent us from going to IMF. And I'm saying that the projections on which we have been...
Are you saying we eventually have to go there?
The government has made a call, right? I've gone beyond that debate.
Okay.
Because, yes, we used to think that, I personally used to think that it is time, to take advantage of debt suspension and COVID and all those things to do, yes. But the government has said we are not going. Okay? Give us the alternative, right? And if you give me the alternative and you make, e-levy,
is e-levy
the
big enough to cover the gap?
Exactly. That's what I'm responding, that it's not big enough. Because, as I was saying, those who are downgrading us, the IMF that's cautioning us, the World Bank that is cautioning us and all that, have looked at the numbers. And I'm saying e-levy is there. And so their decisions today are based on your projections of the e-levy. So if it's about e-levy, then we shouldn't have been downgraded. Because they're already in the budget. You see? And if you are saying that, another dimension, if you say that e-levy will be used to build schools, e-levy will help us roads, you can add to the things that have been attributed to e-levy.
Right.
When a tax is in the budget and it goes to Parliament, that is what Parliament appropriates. So Parliament has already appropriated the e-levy. So tell us in appropriation, tell me specifically that e-levy which Parliament has appropriated is going to do Kumasi Road. The 7 billion, tell me. That is 7 billion because it's been appropriated. So if you have appropriated it to roads, to water, to whatever, tell me the amount which you have appropriated to 2025.
You want to see the exact amounts between
Yeah,
now
because
and
it's
then.
been appropriated. It's not new. That's the point I'm making.
And
it
there's
is in the budget.
Injunction on the application, even though it starts on the 1st of May.
Yes, so from the 1st of May, yes, we would have lost 4 months, right? So if you like do it pro rata, I've lost, 4 months.
Which affects how much revenue will be generated.
So when you do media review, you go and say, I'm not likely to get this revenue and the rest. But it doesn't deny the fact that it has been, the money, which is part of the 100 billion, has been appropriated by Parliament. So tell us in the budget how you have appropriated it.
Sometimes the majority has actually responded to your arguments against the e-levy. And let me just quickly, they have actually dared you that if it's indeed an anti-poor policy, it's going to affect millions of people, allow them to go ahead with it and suffer the repercussions, if there indeed will be any. But they think your criticism is mainly about the NDC wanting to come back into governance.
Put my politics aside.
Right.
They are not accusing me. No, I'm saying that. Put my politics aside.
Okay.
I'm saying that I'm a tax professional, like the professor. Are they saying the same for the professors who are pointing out, right, who are teaching tax? Are they saying the same for the businessmen who are saying this would increase costs? Right? So you see, it's not just the NDC that is opposing. So your criticism
of it you're saying is devoid of politics?
Yes, I'm talking as a tax professional.
Right.
And I'm talking, and in doing so, I have told you that we introduce, additional taxes, which I'm defending as more efficient, right? We introduced ESLA, yes, which resembles an excise because it's on petroleum. But we said it is to tackle crisis, 3 to 5 years. And when we did the first loan using ESLA to settle the VRA debt, yes, the evidence is there. We did it for 3 to 5 years, right? So I know in politics you have to, but we have come 30 years plus in refining our tax regime. It's not the time to distort it again.
When you make this recommendation of going to the IMF, taking advantage of loan suspensions, we also know that there are a few conditions that come with going to the IMF, which government is trying to avoid, like having to put a freeze on employment. Don't you think going back to the IMF is going to affect that?
Listen.
Is that unavoidable?
No, listen. I don't want to be politically expedient, right? Your revenue is paying 2 items, and the money is almost gone. Your total revenue, compensation, debt. Public sector employment is there already. Not debt,
salaries.
Interest.
Interest on debts and salaries.
Yes, interest on debt. The debt itself. You are borrowing to pay debt, which you shouldn't be borrowing. So if you don't see a problem with this strategy, which is taking all the money, right, and listening to Joy FM, for example, today, as a result of which...
the same strategy that governments before have also used, including the NDC.
No. We said that, yes, but it has not been sustainable, right? So...
Are you saying
No, wait.
You were using an unsustainable method.
We were moving to more sustainable. And let me tell you how we're moving to more sustainable means of creating jobs. Terminal 3.
Okay.
Can you imagine how many engineers are employed there? Can you imagine for how many years have we been talking about the new airport, let alone expansion of Terminal 3? But go to Terminal 3. Look at the number of aircrafts that come there now. Can you count the number of cargo handlers, the number of accountants, the number of engineers and others that will be employed? E-schools, take 50 of them. Can you imagine the number of, how do you call it, the number of architects, the number
employed
of,
in the building?
who will be employed, right? Roads, right? Cocoa roads and the rest. Can you imagine the number of people in the rural areas who don't have to come? Because they are in Accra doing the same, Walla to Walla side if you like. Those of them who may not have had education to our level. Wouldn't they stay, do the work, tend to their farms, and because after all, the cocoa farms and things belong to them. So we are saying that, if you talk about, and let me draw a parallel between the roads and snow. It's rain and snow. Those of us who have had opportunity to travel. Immediately after snow, what do the advanced countries do? They mobilize. They reseal the road. So you see mass of people, contractors and whatever. So after the rains, what do you think we'll be doing? If after the rains and the roads, rural roads in particular, have been washed, we put money aside to do resealing and the rest. That is a more sustainable because the rains will come every year. Even when you have drought, some rain will come. Right? So I'm saying that we should be shifting away to more sustainable means of, creating jobs and not overbloat the public service, payroll to the extent that you have two items because you are borrowing to do all others are not even enough for you to continue with the infrastructure that would create the roads because you cannot borrow. So I'm saying that, our strategy, yes, we are not anti, public sector, but we are saying let's do something in addition. After all, in the public sector, a number of people will retire
to do that additional things.
Yeah, but you develop incrementally. Right. That's why we are a developing country. I wonder if we know how many years it took for the US in the 40s to do their highways. Then now you can travel interstate on excellent highways.
Because
right?
They had continuity. They had a plan that was consistent and continuous.
So that's what we have to do. So it means that if it worked for them, then the paradigm for development, is through what they did. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Honorable, let me take you to the EIU report briefly. There was a report that came out yesterday from the EIU. They talked about, and the EIU, I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Yes, they mentioned the NDC has a very high chance of winning the 2024 elections, next general elections. However, they put some conditions in there. The only condition they put in there was to make victory possible, the NDC would have to pave way for a new presidential candidate other than former President John Dramani Mahama. Do you think this holds any substance?
Who is afraid of John Mahama?
The EIU report.
No,
it's not a domestic report.
No, who is afraid of John Mahama, His Excellency, and his record?
I'm not sure anyone is afraid of.
No, I'm not referring. It's a rhetorical question.
Okay.
I'm not referring to you. I'm saying that who, in posing that position, who is afraid of John Mahama?
My whole point is, I don't know anyone who is afraid of him yet.
Well, he looks like somebody.
Okay.
Yes,
right.
Because his record is showing. Okay. And as the professors, I listened to them yesterday, and I have not read, the report completely. But, as they were pointing out, based on what research, EIU did not tell us the survey they used. They did not tell us, and I'm only re-echoing, what the political scientists, have said. So tell us the basis. Is it conjecture? And that's why I said, who is afraid of me? Right?
You don't think it's time for the NDC to introduce a new candidate?
Leave it to the Congress.
To Congress, but there has to be a decision.
John Mahama, yes, the NDC is competitive. Already, you know that there are competitors already. It's competitive, right? So let's, John Mahama, let's the others who want to run, let them go and convince the delegates. Through their record, through their potential.
Seth Terkper think that there are other candidates within the NDC that should lead the party into 2024?
For as long as records go, right, I was part of JM's strategy, which I believe, as I was just saying, from Terminal 3 through employment. This morning we were debating, school feeding, not being able to pay, school allowances versus fees, all those policies which we are debating now, which was, look down, taxes which we used to expand the base, which were removed with fanfare and which are being replaced by inefficient taxes. I am proud of those records, especially now that we are having debates on. So I don't have
any. But that's party effort, not
so I'm answering your question.
Right?
So I'm telling you the reason why I have no reason not to support John Mahama.
Any candidate would still come with brilliant ideas.
They will have to convince me.
Right. And at this point, no other candidate has convinced you?
No.
In the NDC, no other candidate has convinced you that they would be a good...
They haven't. They are just, in fairness, many of them are, they haven't taken to the roads.
Right.
Yet. So they are declaring their intention.
If they emerged, would you encourage them? Would you support them? Would you give them a chance?
Oh, we have always done that. We have always done that. even His Excellency John Rawlings, people who dared, contesting, right? But if we put him aside, Professor Mills. Wasn't it 5, 6 people? Stalwarts. Stalwarts in the NDC. I mean, John Mahama himself. was he not contested, even though he had just been president?
Keenly.
By, again, and I don't think you're telling me that those people are not, credible. Those were credible people they had held political office, they've held various positions and whatever. They made their case. So I'm saying that, yeah, with all due respect to EIU, let the candidates, talk to the NDC, and the outcome will show.
You think the party stands a good chance with former President John Dramani Mahama for 2024, especially as they cite that he already led the party to lose 2 major elections?
Parties lose elections. And the leaders, sometimes the same leaders try again and they win. Right?
So you think he should try again?
It's applicable to Ghana, right? Isn't it?
You think he should try?
It's not applicable even in Ghana.
To every country.
I'm saying, yes, but I'm saying even in Ghana.
Okay.
Right? There were past leaders who stood elections.
They
lost.
Agreed.
2, 3 times. Yeah.
Agreed.
So let's give them the opportunity. If Ghanaians are fed up, you remember the NDC is not, a party without, a large number of people. They will take the decision.
What about the vice presidential candidate, Professor Nana Ajiman? Do you think she should partner again, Professor John Dramani Mahama, or should there be a different candidate? You
see, that process is different from somebody declaring him or herself, right? So it has a lot of consultation, both parties. So I wouldn't want to jump the gun at this stage, because we don't even know who is going to be flag bearer.
Do you think she helped the fortunes of the party in the previous election in 2020?
Of course. I stated, and you can Google if you want, I stated that, when she was being attacked, that you are attacking the woman, even if you forget about her vice chancellorship, the first, leading a public university, and all that. Let's not forget, she managed the largest allocation of the budget every year, education. So I really don't see, the basis on which her competency was being, questioned. She managed transitions in the education sector. Who was in charge of the e-schools, which we all agree, should be the model going forward, or the majority.
Given so as far as you're concerned, the race remains the same. The candidates within the race remain the same.
No. You asked a specific question, and as I said, I am saying the basis on which he was appointed. Yes, that's the record was there, right? And the record is there, just like so many people. As I just said, even with connection to the flag bearer, then this is not. It's not what's the word? It's not devoid of expertise.
Okay.
And people who have a record in office.
The world is going through a difficult time presently, economically. Ghana has also had some issues. What would be your recommendations to pull the economy out of that? Just in March, the country recorded an inflation rate of 19.4%, the highest since 2009. Very significant. What would be the moves that you think would pull the economy back on track? We also have issues with increasing food prices, which have been blamed partly on the Russian-Ukrainian war. In fact, about a day ago, the Russian embassy did say they are not exactly the cause of it.
Well, I tweeted that it was too early to put the blame on that. Anyway.
Well, but a bit of blame.
I think that also, I think the reality is that, yes, the Ukraine war is affecting, and it will affect, the globe. In fact, as of yesterday, the World Bank has, recalculated, if you want, the growth prospects for the global economy. And one of the reasons they gave for lowering it is the Ukraine war. So one is not saying that, I'm not sitting here to say that it is not creating problems for the economy. My point is that we had problems before COVID, and we have had problems before this, right? But in answer to your question, let me give you 2 examples. You see, countries will always go to crisis. countries will always go, governments will always be confronted by crisis, right? We've had our bushfires, we've had our droughts, the opposite, right?
We've had COVID.
We've had, before COVID, there was a global financial crisis. We have commodity price falls. We've had it so long as we are primary commodity exporters. So what is the lesson? Prepare for crisis. What was our proposal? Stabilization fund. What fund did we fall on when COVID struck before we even went to the IMF? Was it not the stabilization fund?
But it's not inexhaustible.
No, wait a minute. So didn't we go to Parliament to $250 million US? And up to date, you know that we have withdrawn $388 million US, $78 million from the stabilization fund, right? If you take it to be 250, that is 1/4 of the IMF loan that we took of 1 billion, our own effort. If you take it to be 350, thereabout, you are getting into 33-40%. That's how you win yourself off the IMF. Are you following my point?
I am.
Progressively. So if with one oil field, and everybody knows that most of that money was paid into the one field, had we paid more into it when we had 3 oil fields, don't you think we would have been taking 500 to 750 million US, right, of our own money, and gone for a loan of 250 million? Again, to repeat, those are practical ways of which countries, respond to their crisis and have no need for the IMF. Secondly, we created a sinking fund. Why? Because we're having debt. We borrowed for single spine, debt was spiraling and whatever. In the midst of all of that, we didn't say, let's take oil revenue and pay the arrears. We said, let's defer the arrears. We agree with labor so that we can use taxes to pay. Why? Because we have need to create a fund to reduce our debt burden in a more sustainable way, right? So we took the first sovereign bond was what we targeted, right? The one that was introduced, that was brought in during the Seth President Kufuor's time. It was 2007, and it was 10 years. The maturity is 10 years. By 2014, you had 3 years to maturity. So we said, where are you going to get 750 million? Because we've been paying on the interest. So we decided, in spite of the demands that we had, to create a sinking fund. By the time we left office, we had used 300. First, we had used 200 million of the bond that we did in 2015 to start paying down, right? Don't we have need for that money? 200 million? We do, right? But there was another need, more sustainable way of developing the economy. Then the sinking fund, as it came after that period, started to bring in income from oil revenue because we're putting it aside when we cap the stabilization fund.
So by the time we left office, of expenditure, you should be able to put some money back down in this sinking fund.
Households.
I see.
Regardless of expenditure.
Okay.
Don't you save for your child's education?
But when your income is not even enough to save, it's not enough for your expenditure, how are you saving?
I don't think my mother, who was selling cloth, had enough.
Okay.
For 4 children, including nieces and nephews. Nieces and nephews. She was selling cloth in the market.
But she managed to save.
But she saw a vision, yes. She managed to save. Sometimes she borrowed, right? And all of us have our tales of the suffering that our parents went through. And that was a critical time because I was in school when the bushfires occurred. And my grandparents and parents are cocoa farmers. So you can imagine, that difficult time, right? So I'm saying that households have need also. But if you look at current consumption, buy a car, build a house, to educate your children. That's why savings is important. So if you are taking loans, you see, if you go and take a loan from your neighbor to educate your child, firstborn, and you are paying well, then you start defaulting. You think you can go to that rich neighbor who shares your vision
right.
for the second child or even for the first child? You come home. So you discipline yourself. If your savings is not enough and you can pay over time, you borrow bank, right? Now that's why the new economy. You don't go to neighbors, but you go to the bank. Your salary, they look at it, how much is encumbered, and they give you the loan, right? So to learn where I was going. So we had used 336, million US dollars to pay down the Kufuor bond. It's essentially Kufuor's bond.
Mm-hmm.
Then we left about 250 million, which the MPP used to pay the balance of 200 million in 2017, October 4th. One oil field. Again, with 3 oil fields. Don't you think that if we had been continuing with the sinking fund, rather than refinancing and throwing it out 15 years, 40 years, and be proud of it, do you think that the debt would have gone to 85%?
Right.
With 3 oil fields. So I'm telling you, you ask a question. And I'm saying that, yes, the process for development, yes. Yeah. It's through incremental changes.
Right.
What others have done already.
Let me take you back a little to your time in office. Your deputy is presently in court for causing financial loss to the state. This was under your watch. Have you made any comments about his situation?
The matter is in court.
Right.
No, I said the matter is in court.
So when it's in court, we make no comments? We make it within the law.
No, I'm no lawyer. I'm no lawyer. So I can't comment on a case that's in court without my lawyer besides me. Because even lawyers have been penalized for public comments. Even seasoned lawyers.
Right.
So one has to be careful. Right? But I do communicate with him if that's what you want to know.
Right.
Yes.
Were you aware of the period and what went on?
I'm aware of the transaction, but I'm saying the matter is in court.
Did you make any interventions on the transaction?
The matter is in court. It's not ended. So if you can just...
Did you find any loopholes within that transaction while you were in power? I mean, while you were in office?
Just, I don't want to prejudice the case. He was my deputy, right? Yes. And I sincerely...
And you remember the transaction?
That it will be... It's a big transaction.
Right.
Yes. We did a lot of big transactions.
What went wrong with this particular transaction?
Please, I don't want to prejudice the case. I said that, the best advice you get from your lawyers, don't comment on a case that is in court, especially if you are not a lawyer, to know what to say and what not to say, right? Because I'm saying that others have commented. I'm also picking a cue from the fact that others have commented who are seasoned lawyers, and they found themselves before.
Was it a bad transaction?
I'm sorry, I think you are pushing. I just don't.
No, I'm just trying to understand. I'm not.
No, I'm not. I'm not. As for the transaction, I would say we didn't do any bad transaction. The evidence is there for everybody.
Okay, because I mean, during the State of the Economy address by Vice President Bawumia, he did mention that some of the issues the economy is facing is due to needless transactions by your government.
No, but he gave examples. Yeah, he said they were, he pointed to loans that were taken, and I think I tweeted and said, thanks for pointing to the fact that our loans has evidence. And if you are following the debate on the railway lines, which they're taking credit for, we mentioned that this was part of the stock that you are criticizing. So you don't criticize our debt record and say it costs, and then take credit for an underlying transaction. So the Tamakosomo Railway is a good example. It's still being debated.
There have been a few questions about someone in the NDC who can match Bawumia's zeal and knowledge.
We have a lot of them.
Like?
Oh, a lot.
Okay.
They've been responding.
Does that include you?
No, they've been responding.
Okay.
Yes.
Who are they?
I've said that, no, for me...
I have not...
For me, I have said, no, I think I gave you my motivation.
Right.
And my motivation is that when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to infrastructure financing, when it comes to all those things, right, I was if you like, the pivot, if you take colleague around which this transaction. So if you criticize it, I will respond.
Okay.
You know, yes,
okay.
And I've been doing it. And
so
I'm saying that,
and
there are more, but you know that there are more, people. Mind you, it's not responding for the sake of responding. But remember, you can go back to the tapes. We were being accused of leaving a bad record, right? To the point where some of us were accused of misreporting. I've worked in the IMF and I know the meaning of misreporting, right? And you have to defend your reputation. So if you want to know the personal, but I'm also on the record of my boss. And I think I owe him that duty, when, it is being attacked. Yes.
Right. Honorable, do you have any political ambitions beyond the Ministry of Finance, like one day becoming the flag bearer of the NDC? I know you have greatly supported former President John Dramani Mahama. You think he's the best candidate into 2024.
Yes.
But beyond that, what about you?
Is it a wish?
I am asking what's on the minds of the people. No, I mean, I'm just thinking there should be other people. You've seen the report. You've not really seen it, but there has been a recommendation.
I normally download, so I take my time to read. But I've seen commentaries and things on it.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree with certain things. I disagree with others.
And
so I'll read it and then.
Yes.
And that's what PFM tax is about.
Okay, right. But the recommendation for the party to consider a different candidate.
I responded to that.
Yes. But could that candidate be you?
I stand to be convinced.
Right. You would need to convince yourself?
To convince myself?
Yes.
No, I'm in support of my former boss. I believe that he has.
And when he's done, have you considered yourself?
Oh, that's the future.
Yeah, but we plan for the future.
Yes, but now we have a target. So.
What's the target?
Is to get John Mahama elected. Nominated as
the flag bearer.
Yes, and elected.
Right.
Because his record is there to show.
I see. I understand you used to do some sports back in the day.
Yeah, I used to.
Was it competitive sports?
Competitive at those levels.
Right.
Yeah, so for example,
what level was it, university?
Yeah, I did that to university.
Okay.
But it was admittedly it was difficult to break into the talents at university level.
Were there any specific achievements
in sports?
Yes.
Some fulfillments.
Fulfillments, okay.
Yeah, so for my love of soccer.
Okay.
Started with playing courts, which is how it all started, or cutting razors. I come from Somalia, and back then Narcotex was playing, so we go to the field, play cutting razor, then your ticket is paid by playing, so you remain, and so you watch, the galaxy of stars, those days,
Which football team do you support? Asante Kotoko, Hearts of Oak, which one?
Hearts of Oak.
Oh, I see. And abroad?
Arsenal.
Oh, okay. Okay. Arsenal, people who support Arsenal are supposed to be very patient people.
Yes, and you've got to understand English soccer from years back to be an Arsenal supporter.
Who's your favorite Arsenal player?
Oh, we have a Ghanaian there now, so I want to be patriotic.
Who's your favorite player for Hearts of Oak?
Hearts of Oak?
Yes.
Looking at the field.
And now there's the introduction of Sule Muntari to help push up the fortunes of the club.
Yes, he has talents.
Okay.
Yeah, you won't deny it, and it will be a motivation.
Well, I think that's something everyone can agree.
A motivation to the young ones. I'm sure everybody has acknowledged that. Right. And hopefully, like Asamoah, is motivating others with all his record. The expectation that he will do that, and the young guys will look up to him, apart from using his.
Thank you very much, Honorable Seth Terkper, for a very engaging conversation. And to you at home, Thank you for spending 1 hour of your evening with us, listening to the former Minister for Finance and Economic Planning, Honorable Seth Terkper. My name is Nwang Falong, and this is MX24 Television. On behalf of the entire production team, we're grateful for your time. Good evening.